Ocean Falls was a town born by chance, the chance to make money. Up the coast, 500 kilometers from Vancouver, Ocean Falls is, to say the least, isolated. But it had a reason to be, power, in the form of the falls after which the town was named. Shortly after the turn of the century, the first force company moved in, and a town grew around it. Then, 18 months ago, the company moved out.
The tiny isolated community of Ocean Falls lies on the west coast of BC's mainland, 500 kilometers north of Vancouver, and accessible only by plane or boat. Since its birth in the early 1900s, Ocean Falls has been a company town, coaxed out of the wilderness by the backbreaking labor of the men and women who settled it, but owned and operated by the private high rollers and governments who have bankrolled its mammoth sawmills and pulp mills for 70 years. A year and a half ago, Ocean Falls was alive with activity. 1,200 people lived and loved and worked here. 1/3 of the residents were employed by Ocean Falls Corporation, the BC government's crown corporation which ran the town's giant newsprint operation. But today, Ocean Falls is dying because 18 months ago, the government shut down the mill. It said it was losing money, millions of dollars worth, and it gave the townspeople 6 months to cash in on generous government assistance to get out or suffer the consequences of staying behind. But a small group of residents refused to leave, spurred on by government promises of a new industry for the town. Today, those people are still waiting, praying for a miracle that will transform Ocean Falls from the ghost town it has become to a vibrant new community. Gunter Hogreef, a longtime resident and president of the Ocean Falls Resident Council.
Well, for one thing, we feel quite strongly about the town slowly rotting away. And we feel the wrong approach has been used by looking for one large employer to come in here based on the forest industry. And we feel they should have tried to attract smaller businesses, smaller ventures to diversify the economic base for Ocean Falls.
The 80 residents still living in Ocean Falls are angry. Since the mill shut down, the provincial government has spent almost $1 million taxpayers' dollars to study the feasibility of a new logging industry for the town. But there are still no firm recommendations. Ray Williston, the president of BC Cellulose, Ocean Falls Corporation, and the man in charge of the studies.
If there's going to be a future for Ocean Falls, it has to be based upon the utilization of the resource in the area, and that main resource is timber. There has to be a backup resource to pay the way of the community. Once that has been established, you can expand, as they talk about, in a minor way with fisheries and accommodate other things there. But you have to have a basic resource to cover the cost factors, and that's related to wood.
We think it's an intolerable situation if you have a town with a complete infrastructure and schools, hospital, everything is rotting away, especially when you consider that the whole town is owned by the people of British Columbia as a crown corporation. And we really feel they're not safeguarding the interest of the people very well.
Sandy McDonald, a 25-year resident of Ocean Falls and the mill manager. He's doubtful the government will bail the town out.
I'm sort of skeptical personally. The most I think I could see happening here would maybe a log sorting operation in the near future. After that, who knows, maybe a pulp mill some years down the road.
McDonald points out that the majority of townspeople who cashed in on the corporation's offer to help them relocate broke even. Very few lost money. After all, the company bought back their homes for the price they originally sold them for, paid for any renovations, brought in recruiters to find the mill workers new jobs elsewhere, and footed the bill for moving them lock, stock, and barrel to their new homes.
The corporation, in my opinion, was very, very generous when the mill closed down. It also, the benefits applied to not only the employees, but everybody gainfully employed in Ocean Falls at the time of shutdown, and teachers, nurses, small business people. The benefits were very, very generous. The people who did stay on, who are not employees, they stayed it was their choice to stay, and the benefits were applicable for 6 months, and they have long outlived that period, of course, and I really don't know what's going to happen.
It should be clearly understood this is not a logging camp that can be uprooted and moved. This is a town which developed over the last 75 years, and many people have very strong ties with this town.
One of those people with strong ties to the town is John Robinson. He's lived here for 35 years, raised a family, and dreads the prospect of leaving.
Perhaps financially they've been treated fairly, but that's kind of a buy-off, really, isn't it? They've been kept in the dark a great deal, and emotionally it's a real problem, and I don't think the government or the corporation has done a great deal to alleviate those problems. Facilities are just about nil. We don't have a doctor anymore, and fuel is going to be a problem for my boat now. We can stay here as long as power and groceries are available, but after that we'll just have to take off, I guess. The home will basically have to be abandoned. The corporation will give us any equity that we put into it, but that's very little. That's maybe $2,500. Doesn't go far to buy a house these days.
Could you tell me, when you first came here and when you were raising a family, what kind of place was Ocean Falls?
It was a participation town. People participated in activities instead of just being bystanders. We had our clubs of every sort and description here, and everybody was extremely community-minded.
That vibrant sense of community became, over the decades, the lifeblood of Ocean Falls, with its origin stretching all the way back to 1906, when the first white settlers arrived by steamer. 3 years later, in 1909, the resource potential of Ocean Falls was first realized with the construction of the town's original sawmill. In 1910, the first pioneer child was born in Ocean Falls in this humble home. Her name was Lillian Smaby, and as she grew, she played among friends in the new town site. By the 1920s, Ocean Falls began to recover from the crippling horror of World War I, and the boom was on. Men volunteered long hours to build a general store, a courthouse, churches, and a library. Next came the fire hall, complete with a new horseless carriage. But what made Ocean Falls the tight-knit, family kind of town it became were the clubs, dozens and dozens of them. In 1921, the town cleared a baseball park above the dam, and it became the hub of sports activities. If you could name it, you could play it in Ocean Falls. Everything from fishing to basketball. But it's for its world-class swimming champions that Ocean Falls will most be remembered, including the Little Mermaid of the town, Lenora Fisher. As Canada's most outstanding female swimmer in the 50s, she competed in the Olympics, the Pan Am Games, and the British Empire Games. And while Lenora swam, Ocean Falls grew. A new school was opened, and the company built hundreds of modern new homes for high school graduates like these, who married and then went to work in the mill. But today the town is dying. The fuel station is shut down, so is the school, and the bank, the Legion Hall, the bowling alley, even the swimming pool. There's only one cafe left in town, and one hotel. For 35 years, Pat Kennedy worked in the mill and acted as the town's guide outfitter.
But when I first came in, they had a rackety old sawmill over there in the corner, and you know, the hotel was wooden and this sort of thing, and well, I think this is what discouraged a lot of people, eh?
And the single men stayed in one building, and the single women stayed
well,
in another?
you see, they had an apartment building here at that time, and the two top floors was for the women that worked here, okay? And the bottom floor, the men stayed in there. Well, if you wanted to get any rest, you didn't sleep in that building, you know. That was different. The doors weren't used. It was the windows and the fire escapes, you see. It was a town where I think practically everybody came in here and enjoyed it for the period of time they were here. A lot of them didn't stay long, but I think you find that anywhere. A lot of people, they go to a job or something and they're working for a while and their wife shows up, no, I don't like this place, I want to move. Well, away they go, you see. And a lot of them, their wives never came here because they didn't like it. They didn't want to live in a city and they wanted a man to work out. Well, I think those kinds should have never been married, you know. They should have stayed single. Well, wouldn't you agree with me on that? You ain't going to answer me, are you? I had a pretty good friend lived here in Ocean Falls. His name was Ed Spooner, and some 20 years or so back, well, Ed and I used to do a bit of beering together, a bit of rumming together, and we had a boat, and we used to do some fishing, and he was an announcer at ball games and sports around the town and that, and he was real good. I mean, there was no doubt about it. Old Ed was real good. After one ball game, I says to Ed, I said, well, I said, how come? I said, you never gave me a blow-up over the ball game. Well, he said, you only struck out 19 batters, that's why. A weekend of fishing with Ed Spooner and myself, we have a couple of bottles of rum and about 6 cases of beer, just the two of us, and go fishing. Nothing left when we come back.
Was this a hard-drinking, hard man's living type of town?
I would say you're right when you say that. I think they had more revenue out of the liquor store here than did any other liquor store in British Columbia for the population. There was a fellow called Frenchy who lived here. He was a real character. And he was a trapper. He had a trap line, and he used to tell us about the times when he would make around King Island and catch a bunch of mink and bring them to the fire hall and sell them, and then after he got the money for them, he'd head out to Pecker Point.
What was Pecker Point?
Well, it was a place where girls was for hire, I reckon. That's what it was all about. It wasn't there when we came to this place, but I understand it was demolished in 1937.
The good old, bad old days in Ocean Falls. Today they're remembered with fond regret by the last survivors of a very special kind of town.
Coming up, the world of politics, according to our very own Alan Garr.